So Embark CEO Patrick Söderlund has now come and give us information on several major topics, including aggression-based matchmaking, in an interview with Dean Takahashi of GamesBeat. So I'll put a link into the description for the full interview if you are interested in watching the full hour and a half of the interview. It does also include Owen Mahoney, who is the former Nexon CEO. And of course, the whole hour and a half is super informative, but I would definitely say the first 35 to 40 minutes of the interview are the most informative in terms of major topics. So we're going to be doing a TLDR on this video of those topics, break them down for you, and hopefully you find it useful. So give us a like if you do enjoy the content, and of course remember to subscribe if you do want more Arc Raiders content on your feed. But without further ado, let's jump first of all into one of the first major topics that Patrick discusses in the interview, and that is around map creation. So how long it takes for Embark to make a map, when we can maybe anticipate new maps for the game. First of all, let's head over to the clip of what Patrick has to say.
So how old is this map in terms of when you guys started making the maps? This is like one of the first?
This is the second one we made. To get like the first iteration done probably takes weeks before it's like playable but ugly.
Something's smoking over there.
And then it takes, you know, I think we probably spent 6 months on this map to play test it and make it work and everything.
Mm-hmm. An arc probe over here. Now open it up. Wow, it takes that long to make a map, huh?
Say again?
So it takes quite a while to make a map and get it right.
Again, to get it up, it's more the real work is actually making sure the map plays well. That's you know, testing everything. Mm-hmm. Where to put things, where they spawn, blah blah blah. That's usually, you know, to get artistically the map in a reasonable shape is quite quick. Mm-hmm. We're gonna take that down, Owen.
I left a couple of things.
Okay. Snitch.
He's down.
Done.
Doing it again. Right.
Okay. So the design of the map, you know, mm-hmm. takes a little while, and then it's in a very iterative type of phase where you have to really go back and forth, test, see where you place enemies and everything, and that they're all, you know, because the maps are relatively complex with mm-hmm. vast outdoor environments, but then you also have indoor environments like this map, for instance, up here. Mm-hmm. You know, is one relatively large indoor area. Here is another one with multiple levels. Yeah. And then you can go through the tunnels if you want to over here. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's quite massive, so the levels are very big. Yeah. And there's actually, you have to make sure that all the areas have something distinct and mm-hmm. that they're also interesting.
Yeah.
Enough for people to play.
Did you say something, Owen?
There was. No, I was going to say, you originally started the maps in a unique way, though, right?
Yes, we I mean, from a lot of them are all maps actually are based on real world, basically satellite topography data using Google Maps, and then they're taken from, you know, places that exist in the world. Obviously, the fake versions. Whoops, radar flare. They're taking. So we basically go to a location. We find an area that we like, mm-hmm. like Tenerife. You know, Dam and Spaceport was actually done in Tenerife, in Spain.
Oh yeah.
And we went there and looked at, you know, what it looks like there. Mm-hmm. Had a lot of. Took a ton of pictures and, you know, photos of rocks and formations and things, and then we use Google Maps to get topography right, and then on top of that we use what we call scanned data. That's good, some cache. Mm-hmm. We use to get scanned data, and then you basically make the map using non-traditional means, such as photos and other things, which is kind of fun.
So a couple of interesting points there that Patrick makes, right? We have the fact that Dan Battlegrounds was made second. It took them a few weeks to maybe make the map actually into a playable state, but of course the key point here is that it took them 6 months worth of play testing before the map became fully fleshed out, right, in terms of maybe the finalization phases where they're looking at enemy placement, they're understanding the areas that need to be high loot, medium loot value, and so on. Of course, a lot of work must go into that in terms of making sure a map is finalized. And what I found also super interesting here is the fact that the maps are based on real world Google Maps data. They actually use information from the real world, turn it into, of course, a fictitious area as well, while seeking inspiration from the real world, which I think is a fantastic pathway. Of course, he also mentioned physically visiting Tenerife, the island of Tenerife. That was also a heavy inspiration of the spaceport map. Of course, you heard Patrick there talking about taking photographs of rock formations and using that to be able to inspire them to create new maps. But again, one of my biggest takeaways here is maybe about what we can expect in the future. Of course, in terms of the project roadmap or the game roadmap, we know that Stella Montis was always going to be released as a new map or playable area quite soon after the game's release. However, we don't actually have a definitive timeline as of yet on any new maps. And I think now that we have an understanding of how long it's going to be taking Embark to create a map that they're happy with, probably 6 months plus, I think we can anticipate that unless they were working on something just prior to the game's release, maybe the earliest we'll see a new map is potentially as early as Easter, maybe even later. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments based on what Patrick said, but I would anticipate around Easter time potentially could be when we get another map. But of course, I'm looking forward to any 2026 roadmap that Embark puts out in the future. The next topic then is, of course, the aggression-based matchmaking. So probably why you clicked on the video in the first place, right? And it's super interesting what Patrick has to say. So let's break that down in a moment.
Yeah, we matchmake, obviously, first it's skill-based, of course. Then you have solos, duos, and trios. And then we also, since a week ago or so, we introduced a system where we also matchmake based on your how prone you are for to watch back.
Friendly.
Friendly.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the
Coming down.
so those are the
Ruined parish.
no, they are we also matchmake now based on how prone you are to PvP or PvE. So if your preference is to do PvE and you know have less conflict with players, then
you'll get matched up with that.
You'll get more matched up. Obviously, it's not a full science. I mean, sometimes.
That's nice.
So what Patrick goes on to say here then is that matchmaking is based on how prone a player is to engage with PvP or PvE. And this is something that the community have long suspected. There's been a debate, many debates on Reddit, Discord, and you name it. Lots of people were split, of course, asking for PvE specific servers and whether PvP should even be in the game. But this has been a burning question for the community. And the fact that he's now confirmed that it is more matched up, so it's not an exact science was what the words he used, but it's more matched up on how prone you are to engage in each of these systems, I think definitely gives some comfort to those players that may be seeking that specific PvE mode. Ultimately, the aim of the game is simple then, right? Don't engage in PvP as much, even if somebody shoots first. Try to run away, run to an extraction, whatever suits you. Then, of course, your lobbies will most likely be a lot more friendlier, right? Or less rats in general. If you're somebody who chooses to even shoot back or even engage in PvP first, it is likely that you're going to be matched with more PvP-orientated players. So, of course, we don't have the exact science around this. We don't know exact figures, but I'm glad that Embark are doing it in this way. So we've had confirmation, but I don't want all the details of everything and how the system works because we don't want anybody to manipulate it, cheat in some way, or be able to, again, manipulate the system to their benefit. I think it's better that a lot of this information stays behind closed doors. My only feedback on this point is that I'm really hopeful that PvP, in terms of the PvE lobbies, so the ones that I'm primarily in, right? I don't engage much in PvP, but I still want it in the game. And that's because it creates tension, right? I don't know if any raider that I encounter, especially on a solo journey, is going to be somebody that double crosses me, somebody that wants to steal my loot, somebody that can't be trusted. Whatever it is, there needs to be that element of tension in the game. Otherwise, a lot of the magic and spark would be lost. It's absolutely one of the things that makes this game so special. So I really hope that Embark and the CEO confirming this point stays true to this, and we don't end up in PvE only lobbies where we can just run around, kill Ark aimlessly, take the loot, and never be worried about what's behind, door number 1, door number 2, or around the next dark corner. I think this is what makes the game so special. So please, Embark, make sure that matchmaking is truly never one way or the other. Next, then, we have a small topic here about the creation of Ark Raiders. Let's first of all hear what Patrick has to say about the creation of the game.
So 6 years, huh?
Yeah, it took 6 years for us. That was maybe not intended.
Yeah, I saw the 3 episodes of the documentary so far. It was good. It's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes I think you need to go through something like this to get kind of where you want it, but it took arguably longer than we wanted, and I think everyone in the whole industry, and I think many industries, kind of misread the impact of the pandemic. I know we did. I think a lot of people did that, and I think that probably it for sure added some time, and I think it did for many others too.
Yeah.
So as we've heard there, Patrick's confirmed it took 6 years, but it wasn't the original intention. Now, lots of that, he says, has to do with COVID and the pandemic being one of the reasons for the delay, and of course the extra time of production. And I think we can all simply agree with this point, right? I think the pandemic hit the world by storm. There was a lot of unknowns for lots of different industries, not just the gaming industry. So the fact they've still managed to put out such a polished and finished game, even with COVID being such a huge challenge, I think is testament to the Embark Studio team. Of course, there is the mini document series as well, which personally I think is worth watching. There's 3 episodes that's on the official Ark Raiders YouTube channel. If you haven't already watched that, but you're interested in the making and the creation of the game, I would certainly recommend checking that out, as there's lots of good information in that. The next topic then is Ark Raiders lore, so the story behind the game. Here we have Patrick just talking about what's going to happen in the future and potentially his thoughts, right, overall about the topic of lore.
I'm curious what kind of lore is like sort of embedded in the environment here. Like, did you guys?
It's actually quite a deep lore, and that we will try to expand. The team has a pretty strong idea what they want to, what they want this to be and how it's going to expand and what's going to happen to it, and it's fun.
Do you think this is something you would add cinematics for, or you're more like embedding the lore in the environment?
Both. We will absolutely have cinematics for sure. We will absolutely do that. And there's been, talking about that, it's fun how many, I can't tell you how many companies have reached out to us wanting to make a TV series movie out of this IP. Many.
Is that tempting already?
Yeah, I mean, we don't mind doing that. It will be fun, but it needs to be done in the right way. And I mean, I hope that we will do that. And that would be, I think the IP fits quite well with something like that.
Did you already have?
You can take this. I'll take the supply drop. You guys can loot that. It's fun.
Did you guys already have a team of writers on board, or is that something that was?
We have a team of writers at Embark, but we don't have anyone working on a TV or film adaptation yet.
Okay.
So the key takeaway here is that deep lore will be expanded. According to Patrick, he's stated that there is a team of dedicated writers at Embark, which of course means that they'll be able to tell any story that they want. And the interesting word there for me is the fact that it will be expanded. That could be taken, of course, in many different ways, but I would certainly speculate that expansion doesn't necessarily mean a DLC expansion as such for the game, but certainly it means new enemies, new maps, new stories, new quests, new things and new information to almost drag us into this post-apocalyptic type dystopian universe that's been created in this game. So I'm super hopeful for the future. I think they've already got a great foundation of a game, And the fact that he's alluded to or even confirmed that it will be expanded upon with that team of dedicated writers, I'm super, super thankful for that and looking forward to what's ahead in 2026. Of course, he's mentioned as well, it won't be just covered by cinematics. There's actually going to be gameplay embedded, almost Easter eggs or small things for us to find to almost confirm certain things within the lore, which is interesting. The other point as well that I just want to mention is that many companies have, of course, approached Embark to wanting to make a TV series or a film since the game's success. I would be absolutely amazed if this doesn't happen, in all honesty. It's interesting to hear Patrick's thoughts on the fact that it's not the right time and it must be done correctly, which tells me that they're very cautious with how they effectively agree to anything with production companies or people that are interested in making these types of things for Arc Raiders. And also it shows me that there's a lot of care and a lot of attention to detail with the game. And again, from a player-based perspective or a personal player that's put over 150, 200 hours topside into this game, again, I'm hopeful and very optimistic about how much love they put into this game post-launch. So super looking forward to the future roadmaps. The next major topic then is something that's maybe a little bit more controversial, but again, very interesting and fresh to hear from the CEO directly, which is the trading and marketplace potential of this game. So let's first of all hear what Patrick has to say about that.
Did you guys ever think about having a lot more trading and marketplace things in the game?
We're going to want to do more of that because it's fun. It's a good part of the game, and I agree with you. We should do a lot more of the trading component of the game. Mm-hmm. Also allow people to trade amongst each other, etc. I think it's fun. Mm-hmm. Something that we absolutely have to look at long term. I mean, there's nothing that we've decided yet, but that's the fun part of building something like this. That this is really the start of something, and we believe that there's so many things that we believe that we want to, that we can look into and do and add to the game. It's fun.
So as we heard Patrick describing there, the longer term plans are maybe to look at player trading, and he directly quoted it as a fun aspect of the game, which I find super interesting. Of course, we saw a massive buff to blueprint drop rates just before the expedition happened, and I thought they might stick with that as a kind of way to almost give some more incentive, right, to the players that were on the fence, maybe more so weren't looking to engage with the system because we lose, of course, all our blueprints with a fresh raider. And I thought that was a balancing act for them where, okay, it's fine to still go on to the expedition system and engage with that system while then being able to not be so worried about blueprints being lost. The fact that he's also now mentioned that there will be a longer term plan to include trading in a marketplace is actually quite a surprise for me. I think the blueprint farming and the aspect of a constant chase within the game is kind of what brings a lot of the retention and player base back time and time again. If we introduce a marketplace or trading, that becomes a lot more trivial. So it'd be interesting to see how that system works. Is it item for item? Would it be the fact that I can use coins? Is it something I can use creds? Like, which form of currency am I going to be using to engage with this system? Is there some kind of tax? There's already, of course, NPC traders within the game. So how does trading player to player work? I think that's a system that needs to take a lot more time to develop and something that needs a lot of community feedback before we head down that pathway. So I'm hoping by Patrick confirming he's saying that it should be fun, that they can make that system fun. That is ultimately what we want in the game. So again, super interested to see what this pathway leads to, but was a much more surprising topic, I must say, from that interview, if I'm honest. The next major topic I want to cover then is around sound design and PvP leaderboards. So let's first of all hear what Patrick has to say to Dean.
Did you ever think of a leaderboard where you could actually identify, like, how much of a player killer someone is? Like, I don't know if, like a reputational thing, right? It's like,
we've obviously had discussions. We've had several discussions about nemesis systems and all types of things, and don't know where the team are on them right now. I think one of the beauties of this game is the fact that we don't have those leaderboards and it's not competitive. We don't want to necessarily foster that type of gameplay. The game isn't about shooting other players. You can do that if you want to, but that's not kind of the ethos of the game. Has never been to go in and shoot players. We want that, to your point, you described it really well. It's a part that we use to craft tension, and for you to feel like, I mean, the game was without other players for a long time, and yes, there were instances where the game was fun and there were areas where it worked quite well, but also the minute you added other players and then you use subtle ways of signaling, you know, you don't know how many players are on the server, you don't know how many players have died, you don't know how many players are around you, but we signal to you that there are other players, that you hear them shooting. That's why audio is a very important part of this game. You hear them encountering Ark and other players. You see the radar flares as they go down. You know, at one point it was funny. You remember this, Owen? I came back into a playtest and the radar flares were gone. I'm like, why did you remove those? And they're like, oh, well. So I just said, just bring them back. That they're such an iconic part of this game, and they also signal to other players that, you know, okay,
action is happening somewhere.
Action is happening somewhere.
Yeah.
It makes it feel populated in an important way, and you also, you know, you also know that there could be a downed raider somewhere. Should I go there? Should I take the risk and go there to see whether I can find something, or you know, have they been kind of brought back to life? Like there's a tension element in that's very important.
Yeah.
So
I think I like the similar to the raider flare. It's those birds, the flock of birds that you can scare them flying up.
Yep.
And yeah.
Or the car alarm.
The car alarms, or the door alarms, or the cameras. You know, there's a bunch of systems that have been put in the game just for those reasons, to make sure. Also, that's why you have, you know, you hear when people are breaching doors, you hear when people are breaching boxes. You know, it's not because we wanted to make that sound. It's because we firmly believe that those are a ways for you to know that something is going on. Which is fun.
So again, guys, they have discussed internally things like nemesis systems here. You heard him say that firsthand, but they don't want to foster that type of gameplay, which I'm again on favor of, to be honest. I don't want, let's say, bounty hunter systems or anything like this to happen. I think the balance of the game they've got for PvP at the moment is a very fine balance, and it's going to be very difficult maybe to toe that line for years to come, with many feedbacks coming right from different community areas. They'll have more data coming from the game as it's played for longer. So it'll be interesting to see if they change their stance on this point. But I hope that it stays the same. In terms of PvP being added, he mentioned here it was crafted. It was added to craft tension, which I completely agree with. And again, I think this kind of acts as a confirmation for us that they're not looking to add a PvE mode anytime soon, right? Which is good news. Of course, with the confirmation of the matchmaking being effectively defined by the player and their actions and their behavior within a raid, I think crafting tension with PvP being added is just something that we can't ever question. It's what makes this game beautiful, and I'm glad that he reiterated this point. There was also an interesting topic around the sound design and elements of the game that effectively maybe some of us take for granted while we're playing and don't realize just how much this contributes to the way that we play the game. I've always been super admirable of how they've designed things like car alarms, the fact that the flock of birds, you know, fly off sometimes as you approach them, the CCTV cameras beeping, and of course the very definitive Ark engagement audio cues for wasps, for hornets, for snitches, everything telling you what's going on around you at all times, which I think is super important in a game like this. So yeah, again, highly recommend checking out the full video here, but these are all the major talking points that Patrick covered with Dean, and of course thanks to Owen as well for his contributions. The next sections then I won't actually be breaking into the clips of the video itself. I'm just going to effectively spitball and talk about some minor topics that I picked up from the entirety of the interview that I didn't feel were, let's say, necessary to bring up Patrick's whole quote. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is crafting and Speranza activity in general. So effectively, he stated that they learned a lot from Nexon on this topic. Effectively introducing a logical economy in terms of the crafting and the recycling loop was something that they spent a lot of time on. And I think, honestly, it works really well. I would definitely still like to see some quality of life in terms of the crafting. But again, I was super interested to understand the thoughts, right, of the CEO on such an important topic of the game, because we spend so much time in Speranza effectively menu hopping and managing different parts of our inventory. The next topic he discussed was the introduction of private game servers. Now, this is something that I think some community members, of course, have asked for and are interested in. Effectively, his response was they're not sure where they are on this particular topic. However, it is something that Embark will consider in the future, which is, again, very interesting, because ultimately we're engaging with a live economy within the game, right, at any given time, especially with the possibility of introducing trading. Does the private game servers mean that I still contribute to my main stash? Can I just go into that private server and effectively, you know, almost ask everybody to engage with a queen or a matriarch, and effectively from a community perspective, right, if I asked you guys to join one of those private servers and we effectively made a promise to each other, let's not engage in PvP and only farm the queen or the matriarch, I'm not sure how that looks, but I'm interested in knowing effectively that this is a pathway that they're not closing the door on. Another interesting topic later on in the interview around the hour mark is around what Embark learned from releasing the finals first. So Patrick quotes that there was a lot of learning. They had lots of information and data from that game, and it helped them understand how to introduce players to the game. So player onboarding, what that looks like in terms of a process, how to introduce them to the different systems, the progression of each player, and of course, finally, the retention of the players as well. So it does seem as though they landed in a very good place here, because consistently the numbers have been very, very high from a Steam perspective. Of course, that excludes console players as well. So I think the numbers are definitely up there for Arc Raiders and consistently have been since release. So the fact that they mentioned, or Patrick mentioned here, that they learned a lot from the finals in terms of that player retention certainly has come to fruition here. And we're seeing it evident now in Arc Raiders. So again, some a minor point, but something I thought was worth bringing to your attention. Another section is then the use of AI. This is a super sensitive topic for many people in the community, especially around job replacements, right? People being replaced by robots effectively, and maybe there's some economical shift that's going to happen within the world, not just specifically to the country that you live in. But effectively, they've said that no attempt of AI has been to actively replace people, such as voice actors. They have contracted voice actors with Embark that they work with in detail and make sure that, of course, they are looked after to some degree, which is great news. I'm certainly on the fence with the use of AI personally. I think that it can certainly be very, very useful in certain applications, but I hope that it doesn't, again, replace or actively remove people's livelihoods, right? We don't want that. We want to be able to effectively live with it and integrate it, maybe not just into production scenarios or industries like gaming, but also our daily lives as well. So again, it's a light topic that he covered, but something that I thought I would bring the attention to. And finally, one of the last things that Patrick was talking about was the storytelling that's possible within this game. And I can't agree more on this point, to be honest, that effectively Embark were willing to experiment and invest in creating immersion and an immersive environment, which actually concocted a very special recipe for players to be able to come into this game and make it their own within this sandbox environment. Even though there is, of course, a core gameplay loop that we're all trying to achieve, right? Which is get more items, be able to engage with Arc better, maybe become more efficient, and then we reset in a couple of months each time, and the cycle continues, right? Ultimately, by them creating all of these systems and almost being willing to try new things during the design process have helped them land on something super special here. The fact that he alluded to, or in fact, he didn't even allude, the fact that he mentioned that there was some story about, of course, his own experiences, and effectively somebody he found that was like a defender of the swamp, effectively, right? Somebody that was in down battlegrounds that had taken this role that they were going to defend all raiders around them from Arc and from any rat behavior, and they took this title almost, or gameplay, into their own hands and effectively role-played, right, as something that the game doesn't give you off the bat. This is something that I find beautiful, right, in terms of this game. It's something that, again, drives the cinematic approach. It drives this sense of community, but also, again, this sense of not knowing what can be around the corner. I think is a perfect balance, and I really hope they don't change much in terms of that core value. Another personal experience I've had, just to talk about storytelling of players, by the way, is somebody acting as a field medic. And it was just super interesting to see this guy that had no guns on him, no shield, absolutely nothing but bandages on him. And all he was doing was effectively running around and healing people that were engaging with Ark. And I just thought that was, something unique, and somebody that had just taken their own time to play this game in their own way without any direction, right? Or any core system or core gameplay loop that incentivizes it. It was just somebody deciding, I want to be a medic for a day, and simply engaging in the game in that way. So I thought that was absolutely fantastic. But again, guys, if you did enjoy this content, then do me the favor and smash that like button. It helps me understand what type of content you're looking for. And of course, it helps with me growing this channel. And that's ultimately what I want to try to achieve. If you did enjoy it and you want to see some more Ark Raiders content, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are on certain topics. Did you actually watch the interview in full? Is there anything I missed here that you want to talk about? Sound off in the comments below, as I do try to respond to all of you. But thank you again for your support, guys, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.